but this isn't a sign of empathy. It's symptomatic of an all-consuming voyeurism. Even when the narrative is clearly, the camera is simply fascinated. The women being manipulated in these mind control storylines are the subject of intense scrutiny. We follow them for minutes on end as they stalk and kill, or go through the motions of sexual acts beyond their conscious control. As Franco hones the formula, we see less and less of the control of the Sfringale. He or she diminishes and withdraws from the scene. They're simply a pretext. The object of desire, the focus of interest, is the victim. Part of the appeal of the mind control fantasy is that it removes the activation from the screen and focuses relentlessly upon the reactions of a troubled, put upon or dominated victim. They take on the role of agent in the drama, but ironically, because they're the passive victims forced to act the role of aggressor. In terms of the scopophilic urge, the appeal is obvious. We lap up the nightmare struggle of the victim, their subservience whilst acting out terrible crimes or obscene sexual acts. It's a delicious spectacle. The controller recedes from the frame because the camera, the viewer, assumes their role. We're the ones who see, as the controller must see, psychically observing the successful result of control. Franco's camera is the supernatural or mesmeric device by which power is asserted over the victims. And yet there's still more to it than this. One thing that alienates viewers who do not take to Franco's work is its slowness. Another is the feeling that the narratives are not strongly motivated. Franco films can seem opiated, slumberous, lacking in energy and dynamism. This is often because the stories reduce or subvert the sense of agency that propels conventional drama. One does not enjoy the usual identification with problem-solving characters. We do not ride pillion with protagonists as they deal with inciting incidents or overcome obstacles to desire. We do not experience vicarious satisfaction as they seek and attain control and autonomy. Instead, Franco's films can seem infected by the passivity of his characters. This is because in a profound way they seek to experience the loss of control, the surrender of autonomy, the dissolution of the will. The films are truly sadomasochistic inasmuch as they partake of both sides of the equation. Disappearance from the scene of the controlling figure leaves a power vacuum. The viewer either enjoys this sensation of suspension and absence, or they're bored and repulsed. Franco's cinema revels in the creation of ellipses, still points, limpid and borderless fugue states, suspended moments that dilate to fill whole scenes, almost no substantive action, and yet still they can their attention. There's a kind of metaphysical suction here. One feels the pull of the image as a curious absence that nevertheless draws one's awareness. A gentle incitement to watch. It's delicate, and it's strangely difficult to break. The apotheosis of this approach is Shining Sex, a more fantastical, sexualized spin on his black and white horror film, The Diabolical Dr. Z, in which a malevolent woman uses mind control to force a pretty young nightclub performer to commit murders. And the difference between the two films is that whereas Diabolical Dr. Z used traditional horror imagery, Shining Sex pushes that aside and leaves a series of slow, narcotically charged sequences of weird sex, ranging from the faintly ominous to the alarmingly dysfunctional. Shining Sex is hallucinatory in a very different way to Franco's more celebrated work, casting off the superfluous optical tricks of Venus in Furs and the silly referential conceits of Necronomicon, sailing off into a mysterious realm between horror, sci-fi, psychedelia, and it's like a laboratory experiment to isolate in which impurities are blown away and extraneous radiation is screened out until what remains can be observed in its purest state, the essence of his cinematic spirit. In it, he plays with the idea that this Franco bug is an entity from another dimension, something truly other, like an alien spore. Look what I found, he seems to be saying. What is it? How did I catch it? Another advantageous offshoot of the mind control fantasy is the way that it silences the characters, resulting in prolonged scenes without dialogue, in which a hypnotized or otherwise mentally dominated figure moves without speaking. This can be seen in many Franco films, Lorna in Necronomicon, wandering around Lisbon under the illusion that she's free, committing murder in the world of her mysterious creation. Cynthia in Shining Sex, snuffing out the holders of esoteric knowledge who oppose the transdimensional alpha. Anna in Les Cauchemars de Sainte Marie, Susan in Voodoo Passion, Irina in No Sexo Estilo la Noche, murdering people they barely know on behalf of wicked and manipulative lovers. This suits Franco's predilection for visual storytelling and his disdain for scripting. Note that one missing from our list of mind control methods is verbal persuasion, a very interesting grey area that Franco never goes into. There are relatively few Franco films in which language is key to one's enjoyment and appreciation. Once we have enough information to understand the relationships between characters, who's a sister, who's a lover, who's a friend, then the rest is usually pretty basic. According to Howard Vernon or Antonio Mayans, two actors who worked with Franco, the scripts were usually just a few pages long, listing scenes and plot instructions with a few pointers for dialogue. The sound editor, Gerard Coquin, says that Franco did not always supervise the dubbing of his films and left merely a few pages of loose instructions about what characters might say, and leaving the precise form of dialogue to the dubbing supervisor. Such then is Franco's love of words. It's interesting that his favourite of his own Gothic horror films was Dracula vs. Frankenstein, a film in which the entire script would scarcely fill one Tuesday forward. With this in mind, the appeal of the mind control story is obvious. Once it's been established, the movements of the submissive character and the choreography of their subservience is the whole show. Speech is scarcely required. The void, stillness, absence. These are constant factors in Franco's cinema. His best work draws towards absolute emptiness. In Shining Sex, when the occultist, Madame Picard, realizes that Cynthia has been sent to destroy her, she says, "What led you to me?" Cynthia replies, "A voice of silence." In many horror films, such metaphysical pronouncements were seen kind of arch, if not pretentious. Here, they just echo with the total strangeness permeating the entire project. Almost beyond the power of words, Shining Sex draws its weird energy from elastic absences, suspended moments of time, journeys across the fringes of perception in which the voice of silence ceases to be a pseudo-mystical affectation and becomes a meditative reality. There are numerous subsets and variations on the mind control theme, a fact which in itself shows how important it was to Franco. He evidently spent time turning the idea around and around in his head with new facets. Vampiric seduction occurs in Count Dracula, of course, in Vampiros Lesbos. Magical seduction is key to Macumba Sexual. Drugs are used to facilitate it in Girl from Rio, Desclavin and Jabrou de Partout. In Bloody Moon, a sister uses the promise of sex to cajole her incestuously inclined brother into committing murders. The devil literally makes them do it, and the demons. More tenuously, leading into a debate about the nature of free will, there's the trouble killer in the sadistic Baron von Klaus, who is led astray by the influence of a book extolling the beliefs of a libertine ancestor. Sex itself is a form of mind control in Franco. Men become enamoured of women that they know are dangerous, but pursue them nonetheless. And in She Killed in Ecstasy, the Doctor's been hunted by the beautiful Soledad Miranda, seem to know they are meeting their nemesis, but persist in playing along with their own destruction.